What do you know about shady origins of consumerism in the U.S.? Industrialism and the act of displaying one's status through garments, adornments, and different things has existed since the beginning of human progress. However, the perpetual pattern of attempting to purchase has never been more uncontrolled than it is currently. How did the United States, a country established on Puritan, non-materialistic inhabitants, become loaded up with the greatest customers on earth and wind up involving 29% of the world's purchasers showcase? Notably, Americans were cautiously and methodically controlled into turning out to be voracious customers. Freud's theories. The man who is to a great extent answerable for presenting publicizing, as we probably am aware it was as a matter of fact Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays. Bernays, nicknamed the father of advertising, contemplated his uncle's compositions on brain research and gathering mindset, and scholarly people respond to sentiments, not realities. With this information, he saw a chance to gain by individuals' psyche once by selling merchandise with the guarantee of conveying power, status, sex advance, marvelousness, well-being, and different things with enthusiastic associations. His uncle likewise instructed him that people regularly act nonsensically when feelings are included and can be persuaded objects are an image of their character. Bernays utilized these speculations to control individuals into purchasing items they didn't really need or want. One of Bernays' first broadly realized advertising efforts was for the American Tobacco Company, where he was entrusted with pulling in progressively female smokers. Obviously, he had one significant obstacle to survive. It was 1928 and there was a long-standing untouchable about ladies smoking in broad daylight. In this way, Bernays counseled a psychoanalyst to assist him with getting at the foundation of the untouchable, and was informed that cigarettes represented the penis. Bernays astutely chose to focus the Lucky Strike crusade on female force and autonomy, by promoting cigarettes as lights of opportunity, likening smoking to female fairness. His publicizing endeavors caused a national mix and very quickly made it adequate for ladies to smoke. Bernays overwhelmed the showcasing field all through a great part of the 20th century, and is the motivation behind why those in the US consider bacon and eggs the quintessential breakfast. Why Ivory cleanser is favored by specialists, and, as indicated by a few, is the motivation behind why individuals accept water fluoridation is protected and advantageous. He had such huge numbers of fruitful battles that Life magazine named him one of the most compelling Americans of the 20th century. Entwined with the government. From the beginning, it appears the possibility of a consumerist, moldable society was connected with government desire. A portion of Bernays' most punctual work was as a press specialist for the American Committee on Public Information during World War I. In that position, he advanced President Woodrow Wilson as a deliverer, spread the inhabitants of popular government, and was so practiced he joined the president at the Paris Peace Accords in 1919. After seeing the viability of purposeful publicity, those in power weren't excessively enthusiastic about putting this specialty of control back, taken care of, as it were. In this way, much after the war, both the legislature and/or organizations kept on utilizing purposeful publicity as an approach to control residents. And periodically the interests of the administration and partnerships aligned. For model makers were concerned the high creation and deals they'd become used to would decrease once the war was finished. Normally, they would not like to see lessening benefits. So they utilized Bernays' publicizing procedures to persuade individuals to purchase more by connecting merchandise to oblivious wants. Simultaneously, numerous presidents touted the purchase purchase, purchase mantra in the expectations it would support the economy. President Herbert Hoover said to Bernays, "You have assumed control over the activity of making wants and have changed individuals into continually moving joy machines, machines which have become the way to financial advancement." Public relations. In a meeting appeared in the BBC narrative The Century of Self, Bernays said publicity built up a negative implication after World War I and II. Since it was related with something Soviet communists and Nazis used to sustain their order. To distinguish his profession, Bernays quit calling his industry propaganda and renamed it public relations. Still, public relations was minimal in excess of a code word, as it kept on depending on the essentials of purposeful publicity, misleading statements, influence, and endeavoring to change open perspectives. In spite of the fact that publicists weren't constraining individuals into supporting a specific ideological group, they were utilizing their messages to impact how residents felt about garments, vehicles, magnificence, and everything in between. Nowadays, a large portion of us realize we can't fully trust any promotion. As such, we comprehend famous people are paid to convey a specific brand of sack. We see the Coke put conspicuously up front in our preferred TV shows. And we realize vehicles should speak to male sexuality. However, in any event, realizing these standards were totally produced, it's about difficult to shield them from saturating our own convictions, that is the quality of the propaganda. Apparently, Bernays didn't understand his type of showcasing so firmly looked like fundamentalist procedures and was stunned to learn Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's Reich Minister of Propaganda, kept duplicates of Bernays' compositions and utilized them to build the ascent of Nazism. Keep consumers unsatisfied. Early promoters comprehended the best way to keep buyers purchasing was to guarantee they were rarely entirely fulfilled. Albeit most organizations didn't make disgraceful items, albeit arranged outdated nature is as of now an issue. They used advertisements to persuade watchers they would buy one way or another subpar on the off chance that they didn't have the freshest, most costly thingamabob on the market. Wall Street broker Paul Mazur clarified when he stated, "We should move America from a necessities to a wants culture. Individuals must be prepared to want to need new things, even before the old have been totally expended. We should shape another attitude in America. Man's wants must dominate his needs." It was no mystery client disappointment was the objective for some producers. Charles Kettering, executive of General Motors, composed an article for a 1929 magazine which he genuinely named "Keep the Consumer Dissatisfied." In it, he attempted to convince perusers that ceaseless utilization was the best way to support the economy. He stated, "You should acknowledge this sensible disappointment with what you have and purchase the new thing, or acknowledge difficult situations. Profit more important." While it might appear as though it's our financial obligation to constantly spend, and in this way work more enthusiastically, in truth we could all work a small amount of the time and still have enough products and ventures to address everybody's issues. Secretary of Work James J. Davis found this reality in 1927 and talked about it in a meeting with country's business, bringing up that America's material plants could create all the fabric required in a half-year's activity every year, and just 14% of the nation's shoe production lines were expected to give each resident footwear for a year. Later in the meeting it was recommended that all the world's needs could be met by just 3 workdays a week. Facts aside, instinctively it appears as though we ought to be working fundamentally, not exactly our predecessors. All things considered, we have machines, mechanical production systems, PCs, the web, and an abundance of innovation intended to make our lives easier. Yet, as per an ABC News article, we are working longer hours than whenever since insights have been kept. And Americans are working more than any other individual in the industrialized world. So, what gives? For what reason isn't innovation making our lives simpler, and for what reason would we say we aren't all committing to the multi-day work week that was demonstrated practical in 1927? Tragically, it's totally accomplished for business benefits. Working representatives regular and getting more prominent quantities of items to showcase is more gainful for entrepreneurs than simply addressing everybody's needs, that is, obviously, in the event that they can persuade individuals to purchase the items. In any case, on account of Bernays and his devotees, organizations realize how to transform residents into buyers, trigger their oblivious yearnings, and make them buy superfluous items. Installment plans. During the 1920s, makers acknowledged they could grow their benefits significantly further by focusing on a generally undiscovered market, poor people and lower white-collar classes. Clearly these people didn't have a lot of discretionary cash flow, so organizations thought of such a workaround, the portion plan. These plans permitted shoppers to purchase costly merchandise by consenting to pay for the item in increases over a set time frame. Frequently this arrangement brought about the purchaser paying unquestionably more than the item was really worth, yet it made it workable for some more individuals to buy exorbitant things. For example, vehicles, apparatuses, furniture, clothes washers, and other extravagant products. Loan bosses, account holders, and portion plans were the same old thing for the time. However, being underwater consistently conveyed a specific shame. Keen promoters realized they needed to evacuate the disgrace of obligation on the off chance that they had any expectation of the majority exploiting the portion programs. Thus they did. A little money installment, advantageous regularly scheduled installments, a sensible upfront installment, and other enticing adages, which are very recognizable today, became standard. In certain distributions, the quantity of promotions referencing portion designs dramatically multiplied through the 1920s. Additionally, the mind-boggling accomplishment of portion purchasing in the car business, thanks in huge part to GMAC's showcasing endeavors, made it socially worthy to utilize portion intents to purchase different kinds of goods. Unfortunately, the Great Depression that followed the roaring 1920s was more painful for those who participated in installment plans, since their lack of income also meant the repossession of many of their belongings. Shockingly, it appears to be neither organizations nor residents have gained from the mix-ups of the 1920s and 30s. Since we're, despite everything, convinced to pile on unpaid liability and live outside our methods. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you liked the video.